Lance Stroll's appearance after the Italian Grand Prix was not just unusual, it was a spotlight on the deep problems currently running through Aston Martin. The Canadian, already known for not being a man of many words, shocked journalists and observers alike with an almost ghostly silence. After a sobering 18th place finish that left him as the last classified driver, he answered questions with a laconic, "Yep," "Not much," and finally, "Not at all." It was the most bizarre media round of the weekend, and inevitably raised the question, what's actually going wrong with Stroll and with Aston Martin? Before we dive deeper, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and write us in the comments whether you think Stroll still deserves a place in Formula One. The race itself was a disaster for Stroll. He went into the Grand Prix from 17th on the grid, but a risky strategy of running almost 50 laps on a single tire set proved to be a total failure. Aston Martin bet everything on a late safety car that never came. This left Stroll without a chance, far behind, and frustrated. And he vented this frustration not on track, but in the mixed zone. An incident with Esteban Ocon, who pushed him off track at the Variante della Roggia, earned the Haas driver a 5-second penalty. But for Stroll, it was just another low point in an already ruined afternoon. Asked if he wanted to comment on the maneuver, he only managed a brief, "I have nothing to say about it." And with that, the matter was settled for him. The scene felt like a déjà vu from earlier phases of his career when he was considered driving limited and mentally overwhelmed. But this time, the situation stands on different foundations. Aston Martin had placed great hopes in the 2025 season, with a technically ambitious package and the expectation of regularly fighting for points. Instead, the team experienced a debacle in Monza. Fernando Alonso had to end his race early due to a rear suspension failure, and Stroll fought a hopeless race against the back of the field. Mike Crack, Aston Martin's chief trackside officer, tried to limit the damage after the race. When asked whether Stroll's silence was an expression of anger or resignation, he defended his driver. In such situations, when you start from behind, have a little tire degradation, and hope for a safety car that then doesn't come, frustration is normal, Crack explained. He spoke of a game of risk that Aston Martin had consciously entered and lost. But Crack's explanation seemed more like excuses. Because it's no secret, Aston Martin is currently struggling with fundamental problems. Strategic missteps are accumulating, performance lags behind the competition, and technical reliability is anything but guaranteed. In this mix, every team error, every weak driver performance is mercilessly exposed. Stroll's silence is therefore not just an expression of personal frustration. It's a symbol of an entire racing team's crisis. Added to this is the fact that Stroll's status in the team seems untouchable, regardless of his performances. As the son of team owner Lawrence Stroll, he has a special position that not only irritates the public but could also cause internal tensions. While Alonso regularly extracts the maximum from the material, Stroll delivers results that would not be acceptable in any other team. But instead of drawing consequences, management looks for explanations, as in Monza. The question that must be asked is, how long can Aston Martin still afford this constellation? With Honda as a future engine partner from 2026, expectations are rising enormously. A works partner expects not only a competitive car, but also a driver duo capable of consistently delivering results. Can Aston Martin really take the next step with a silent, frustrated Stroll on board? Even heavier is the external impact. A driver who says almost no words after a Grand Prix sends a fatal signal to fans, to sponsors, to the entire Formula One public. While other pilots stand and answer questions even after disasters and try to control the narrative, Stroll leaves an image of indifference. This is exactly what critics have been criticizing about him for years. Lack of charisma, lack of leadership qualities, lack of responsibility. Lance Stroll's silence in Monza was not just a footnote, but could prove to be a warning signal for Aston Martin's entire future. In a phase when the team urgently needs stability, his driver's appearance seems like a symptom of deeper lying problems, and like an indication that strategic switches have been set wrong. The situation is multi-layered. On one hand, it's about Stroll himself. a driver who has been racing in Formula One for years without ever making the definitive breakthrough. Yes, there were individual bright spots, like the podium in Baku in 2017, or strong rain drives. But overall, pale performances, inconsistent results, and body language that appears anything but combative dominate. Anyone who dismisses journalists' questions with a "not much" after an 18th place in Monza doesn't show the attitude of a driver who wants to defend his place at any cost. On the other hand, Aston Martin itself is at a crossroads. With Honda as a future partner from 2026, the pressure increases massively. Honda expects a top team ready to win races and compete for the World Championship. The Japanese have consciously separated from Red Bull to build Aston Martin as a new flagship. But with performances like those in Monza, it will be difficult to fulfill this promise. Particularly delicate. In Japan, Yuki Tsunoda enjoys enormous popularity. Should Aston Martin join forces with Honda, the question will inevitably arise whether Tsunoda wouldn't be the more logical candidate, at least from a marketing perspective. This makes Stroll's place vulnerable in the long term, even if his father owns the team. Mike Crack's explanations about the Monza debacle were telling. They had hoped for a safety car that didn't come. They had calculated risks. This sounded less like strategic brilliance and more like pure desperation. And it raises the question, why does a team that claims to fight for points rely on a strategy based exclusively on luck? It seems as if Aston Martin itself no longer believes in its own pace. Technical problems are also mounting. The long pit stop time Crack mentioned is not an isolated case. Execution errors, software bugs, log data that must be analyzed only afterwards. All this adds up to a picture that doesn't look like a top team, but like a midfield team with ambitions it cannot fulfill. Fernando Alonso may partially mask this deficit with his experience and indomitable will, but Stroll is not able to carry the team. He's a passenger, and that's exactly what Aston Martin can no longer afford in the future. Added to this is the external impact. In a sport where communication and media presence play a central role, a driver who refuses the public is a risk. Sponsors want visibility, fans want characters, teams want ambassadors. Stroll, however, delivers the opposite: silence, indifference, frustration. This damages not only his own image, but also that of the team. Anyone who appears so taciturn in the mixed zone that the PR department has to cut off the conversation inadvertently documents the state of a team that can no longer explain its own problems. The question that arises from this is explosive. How long can Lawrence Stroll still protect his son? Until now, the Aston Martin cockpit was considered untouchable, a place secured regardless of performance. But with Honda in the background, rising expectations, and growing external pressure, this paradigm could change. Should Honda actually demand a say in driver selection, Lance Stroll would suddenly be expendable, a situation that was unthinkable just recently. For Formula One itself, the Stroll case is also instructive. It shows what happens when sporting performance and family power relations collide. While other teams decide ruthlessly based on performance, at Aston Martin an imbalance has emerged. A team that invests millions to find connection to the top, but simultaneously protects a driver who doesn't live up to these ambitions. This cannot work in the long term. Monza was therefore more than just a bad day for Aston Martin. It was a glimpse into a future that could look bleak if no changes are initiated. Whether Stroll himself is ready to face this pressure can be doubted after his appearance. He didn't seem like someone who wanted to fight, but like someone who had already given up the fight.